Welcome to the Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We're going to look at something that affects every single one of us every single day, yet honestly, so few people actually understand how the whole shebang works. I want you to think of the entire financial system as a game. It's this massive, complex, global board game. And, just like any game, it's got distinct rules. If you don't know the rules, well, you're going to get played. But if you can master these basic concepts, you can literally rig the game in your favor. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're covering 5 core levels. 1. The reality of money. 2. Banks and the interest engine. 3. Inflation and economic resets. 4. The credit score game. And finally, 5. Wealth, value, and time. All right, let's kick things off with level 1, the reality of money. Imagine this. You've been working hard all month, flipping burgers or whatever it is you do, and you're expecting a solid $2,000 paycheck. But then you check your bank app and you see this number, $1,456. What happened? Well, invisible forces swooped in and took their chunk before the money even reached your hands, right? Federal income tax, state tax, Medicare. It's the modern kind of painful ritual of parting with your hard-earned cash. So why does this actually happen? Well, taxes are, fundamentally, the cost of civilization. While filing them is a totally annoying guessing game, this money actually builds our roads, it funds schools, and hey, it ensures the health department keeps your favorite taco truck rat-free. Plus, through systems like Social Security, it kind of forces us to save for retirement, taking money now so you can get it paid back when you're older. It's just the price we pay for a functioning society. And that brings us to the weirdest part about the money we're being taxed on. It's not actually real. If you compare a paper dollar bill to a literal wooden stick, inherently, there is no physical reason the paper dollar is more legitimate than the stick. Currency is entirely a social construct. It is built on a shared belief. We, as a society, have just collectively agreed the dollar has value. And central banks have to regulate this super tightly because if they print too much, it literally becomes monopoly money. But if they print too little, the currency becomes hopelessly scarce and nobody can afford to live. That leads us straight into our second section, banks and the interest engine. Okay, we need to shatter a childhood illusion right now. Your cash doesn't go into some giant subterranean vault guarded by a dragon. In reality, banks are just middlemen. They're financial matchmakers using a system called fractional reserve banking. When you deposit $1,000, the bank only keeps a tiny fraction of it on hand. They take $900 of your money and immediately lend it out to someone else who wants to, say, go buy a jet ski. This matchmaking system works flawlessly on the assumption that not everyone will want their money back at the exact same time. It's brilliant. Unless, of course, it's 2008, panic sets in, everyone lines up to withdraw their funds at once, and the entire system just crumbles. And the engine powering this whole banking system? It's interest. I absolutely love this quote from our source material. Interest is money's way of charging rent to exist in someone else's hands. It hits the nail on the head. If you're borrowing money, interest is the literal price tag you pay for the privilege of using someone else's cash. But if you're the one saving or lending money, interest is your reward for being patient and boring. You get to be the one collecting the rent.
Let's see how this builds depending on the type of interest. First, you have simple interest. That's just a flat fee. Basically, here's a fee, thanks for playing. But then you have compound interest, which is way more aggressive. Compound interest means every dollar you have now gets clones. And those clones, they also want to charge rent. If you owe 20% interest on a credit card and miss a payment, your interest actually starts earning interest. That is exactly how a simple $12 late-night burrito spirals into a $50 financial regret. No thank you.
But there's a flip side here. Compound interest is also the absolute greatest cheat code in the financial game. If you're earning, say, a 7% annual compound interest on your investments, your money starts duplicating itself. Your $100 becomes $200, which grows to $400, and so on. It's the silent engine behind wealth. If you just let it sit, feed it, and give it time, you will eventually wake up old, rich, and probably slightly smug about it.
Moving on to Section 3, Inflation and Economic Resets.
As you play this financial board game, there are environmental hazards you've got to navigate. Have you ever bought a bag of your favorite chips and realized it suddenly cost 30% more than it did last year? Well, you've just been hit by inflation. Inflation is when money slowly gets less valuable over time. It's a quiet erosion of your purchasing power. Your $5 bill is still technically a $5 bill, but it buys less gas and way fewer instant noodles. This usually happens when you have too much money chasing too few goods. Imagine 2,000 people all want to buy a TV, but a store only has 1,000 TVs in stock. The store realizes this massive demand and just hikes the price up from $500 to $800. To cool off all this crazy spending, the government will step in and raise interest rates, which makes loans more expensive so people have less money to throw around.
Now, when the economy cools down a little too much, we hit our next hazard, a recession. Officially, a recession is when the economy decreases for at least 2 consecutive quarters, so 6 months. Think of the economy as a massive party. During the boom phase, the drinks are flowing, everyone's dancing, money is loose. But eventually, a recession hits. The lights flicker, the party ends, and suddenly the DJ is playing sad lo-fi beats about corporate downsizing. Jobs vanish, and people stop buying overpriced coffee, saving their cash for bare necessities instead. It is a painful reset for sure, but it's a completely natural and necessary part of the economic cycle.
All right, Section 4, the credit score gain. When you're trying to navigate out of those recessions or, maybe buy some property, you're going to face a gatekeeper. It's the shadowy algorithm that judges your past to calculate a 3-digit number, usually between 300 and 850. This score is entirely about trust. Lenders basically just want to know, hey, if I give this person money, will they actually pay me back? If your score is below 580, the algorithm basically views you as a walking red flag. Most people fall in that average player range, but if you can push that number over 750, you are sparkling with adult credibility, and banks will literally compete to give you their absolute best rates. So how do you win this specific minigame? Well, here are the exact rules the algorithm uses. Payment history is the absolute biggest factor. Do you pay on time? Then there's credit utilization, which is just how much of your available credit you're actually using. They also look at your credit age, the mix of different loans you have, and how much new credit you're applying for. The absolute golden rule here is you must make your required payments before the late period hits. If you don't, your score will immediately drop. Our source material uses a really vivid metaphor for this that I love. Treat your credit score like a pet dog. If you ignore it, it is gonna poop all over your life. But if you take care of it, feed it, train it, someday it might just help you buy a house. And here's the kicker. You can have 0 debt and still have a trash score simply because you have no history. So yes, the game is kind of rigged, but by learning these exact metrics, you can rig it right back. Which brings us to our final and honestly most empowering part of the explainer. Section 5, wealth, value, and time. This is where we stop playing defense and we start playing offense. How do we use all these mechanics to build real, lasting wealth? Well, the first step is utilizing investment vehicles. So you stop trading your time for money and start trading your money for more money. You can buy stocks, which are just tiny ownership slices of companies. You can buy bonds, which means you're acting as the bank, loaning money out to collect that sweet, sweet interest. You can buy funds, which bundle these together to lower your risk. Or you can buy real estate, acquiring property that someone else actually pays for you to own. A lot of people are completely terrified of market dips. But you know what? The real danger isn't losing a little money in a dip. The real danger is keeping all your cash stuffed under a mattress and letting inflation quietly steal your future. To really understand where immense wealth comes from, consider an average rock versus a shiny yellow rock we call gold. Inherently, gold isn't actually worth more than a regular rock in a purely functional sense, right? But humans collectively place a massive perceived value on it simply because it's rare. And this principle applies to absolutely everything. It is exactly why Gucci can charge 100 times more than Target for a handbag. It's why Steve Jobs became a billionaire by inventing the iPhone. If you can provide immense value, or even just perceived value, to millions of people, you will earn a massive amount of money in return. But of all the assets out there, the single most valuable one in the world is time. Wealth is built in decades, not days. This is exactly why ordinary people with incredibly modest average paychecks can retire with 7-figure portfolios. They didn't magically beat the system. They simply used the system. They let time and compound interest multiply consistent, patient investments over 30 years. Time is the one asset that almost everyone starts with a lot of, but absolutely no one gets an unlimited supply of. So we've covered the reality of money, the mechanics of banks, the hazards of inflation, the credit algorithm, and the secrets of wealth. You now know the rules of the game. The mechanics are no longer hidden from you. So I want to leave you with this provocative question to ponder. Knowing the rules of the game, how will you command your time and create your value? The board is set. It is your move. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.